Hello and welcome. Thanks for joining us on Sports Webinars. The Paralympics are starting today at 9 p.m. our time. I'm joined by former aerobics champ, also former Miss Olympia, but in my mind, she's always Miss Olympia, is Sue Stanley. And we have a special guest as well, Brian McNicholl. Brian was an Australian Paralympic lifter, a weightlifter and a wheelchair basketballer, and managed to win 5 gold medals at 6 Paralympics over a 20-year period from the 70s to the 90s. Sue and Brian, hello.
Hey, how are you?
Great.
Hi, Jonesy.
Great. It's so good to have you on the webinar, Brian. We've had Sue on here before. Your story is quite phenomenal, and it's quite an amazing journey from the 70s. So Montreal was your first foray into the Paralympics, and then right up to Atlanta in 1996.
As an athlete, it was, yes. And I thank you for upgrading me to 5 gold medals out of 6 games. But that was my competition actually started a bit earlier than 76, and I just as a bit of a backstory, I contracted polio. And that's how I ended up in a wheelchair. And a young boy, when I was in hospital, was in the bed next to me, and he also had polio. But then when we left hospital, we never saw each other until young teenagers. And he had already been to the 1968. He was older than me, but he went to the 1968 Paralympics, which were held in Tel Aviv. And he kept pestering, well, not pestering, but he kept saying, "Why don't you come and train? Why don't you come and train? And maybe you might be good at something." And I didn't take his advice on that. So it was a little later, and after 72, that I bumped into him again, and he convinced me. And of course, I went training, and the rest is really history. I took to it like duck to a water. And my first sport was obviously weightlifting, because I was always pretty solid in the upper half, having had to do everything with my arms when I didn't have use to my legs. So powerlifting, it was known as weightlifting back then, and I'll get into why it changed further down the track, but it was weightlifting back then. And yeah, I went to Montreal and won silver there, and then went on to represent on a number of other occasions. So that's how it all started. And I represented once at basketball. I was a bit of a fill-in. They were running short on players, and we played USA in the first game in the 1980 Paralympics, and got absolutely thumped. And hence why I just staying a weightlifter.
And with the weightlifting, was it something, because you contracted polio when you were 11 months old, so you would have actually not even got the chance to walk in your life. What was the point that got you over the line as far as doing weightlifting?
Well, my parents had obviously a lot of foresight, and knew that I had to keep a fairly good, solid level of strength throughout my life to get me through. And my brother, who was in the Air Force, he actually used to train he got some weights at home and started training me as a young 13-year-old. And I, as I said, I took to it like duck to a water, and then I joined a club and local events, and then it became club events, and then it became state events, and then it became national, and then I found myself, representing the country. So it was really through my family that convinced me that I needed to have a lot of strength going through my life, having to be where I am now. So that's how it all came about.